Awesome. Neal, welcome and thank you so much for doing this video for people who are considering the Intentional Product Manager program.
Of course, happy to.
Perfect. So Neal, let's begin at the beginning. So tell us just quick 30-second, who are you? What do you do? Just tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, so my name's Neal. I currently work as a product manager at Qualtrics. I'm focusing on our experience management for employees. So in that space, which I'm uniquely suited for. So I think we'll get into it a little bit more, but it's been a good so far about 3 months into the organization and really enjoy the role and what I'm doing.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. And you're based in Seattle, right?
Yes, I am in the Seattle area. So we're co-located in Seattle and Provo, our headquarters, but we have customers all over the world. So interesting. I was talking to one in Germany this morning.
So, tell me more. When you joined the Intentional Product Manager, you were already starting to look for roles, you were interviewing. Tell me what an average week looked like for you, and especially what were the biggest points of pain or frustration that you were feeling as you were going through the job search?
Yeah, so realistically, it was like having two full-time jobs. So it was doing the work during the day of, I was currently working as a product manager at a smaller sort of mid-tier private equity owned technology company. And then it was really spending the evenings doing kind of practice prep, reaching out to my network, contacting folks, and then, squeezing in interviews throughout the day. So on the upside, I guess, of COVID is I could squeeze stuff in because I was working from home the whole time. So I could switch the work laptop and the personal laptop if I needed to. So it made it less obvious to, oh yeah, I'm going on a long lunch. Don't mind me. So I guess that was one upshot of the whole thing. But yeah, that was kind of a typical week. It was kind of grinding through some of these things while, trying to balance home life as well, the wife and daughter. So yeah.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. And with COVID, it's, for most people, it's been a blessing in disguise. For a lot of people, it's also been even worse just because there's no boundary. Yeah. But it's always interesting to hear how things have changed because of COVID. So I'm curious, what caused you to seek out Intentional Product Manager and this program as you're going through your search?
Yeah, it's a great question. So really what I was running into is, I have an MBA in a background, so I have a pretty decent network, but it was really taking my own career and trying to make sense of it in terms of these discussions. So I was getting interviews, so I was getting into the first couple rounds. And so I had, I would say, a few flame outs with like AWS where I got midway through and I kind of hit a wall, and then Microsoft, and then some other sort of medium tier tech companies in the Seattle area that, I had some people at that I'd known. But it was one of those, it's like, oh, we really like you, but you're not quite a fit, or somebody else had a little stronger in this area. And so what I was going through is trying to figure out, all right, I know how to do the work. I have a pretty good background from a business side and some from technology side, but I didn't think I was framing it in a way that made sense. And I didn't have the sort of stereotypical 7 years of a PM role, which you see in a lot of roles right now. It's like, oh yeah, you need to have 7 years. It's sort of like this oxymoron. You need it to get it, but you can't get it until you have it. And so it's like, how do you fit into there, kind of thing. So I was really thinking through how I framed my skill set to make it come across clearer. That was really what I was struggling with. So there's a couple things in there. Is that I wanted some guidance on how to take apart and to really deconstruct my career so it made sense as a product manager. And then the other things that I found, one of the, I said, flame out of AWS, is I ran into the whole field of product management interview type questions, specifically. Behavioral questions I'd done before, the whole STAR method, situation, task, action, response, all that, no problem. It was into these interesting ones like estimation or product design or systems, thinking through them. I could answer the question, but it was one of those things where you felt like there was a rubric they were using to measure you that you didn't know. And so it's like, okay, they're looking for something. What is that something that they want to have? Like this, and this, and then they move on. I was filling in some of them, but not knowing what the test was about. It was sort of like I was filling in answers randomly on a page.
Yeah, that's very well described. It's okay, you're clearly looking for something. Did I hit it? What exactly is what you're looking for?
Exactly right. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. So Like, tell us, so you said working with us. What was for you, like, as you thought about, should I work with Shobit? Should I work with intentional product manager or not? What were the big questions that came to your mind, and what got you ultimately to join?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, you might remember it, but it was like our first conversation. It really went into a lot of this, right? And you did a great job of probing into that and thinking through, what are my challenges that currently running into. It wasn't a long decision. It was like I made the decision on the spot, and it was like, yep, that's what I need to do. Because I think at that point, like I was just sort of saying, I'd thought about the requirements, if you will, of what I was needing, and so I had a pretty good, at least rough out of where I was going.
Mhm.
And when our conversation really checked all of the boxes, and so if you think about, requirement and solution fit, it almost had a perfect overlap, right? So it was like the Venn diagram aligned really well, and so that helped me to really think about that. So it was great. So like, yep, this is the type of thing I need. One, somebody's been through some of this pain and I think got punched in the face a few times as well, so I don't have to. And then also really helping me think through in a very empathetic way of what it is that I brought to an organization and how to frame that conveys it in a very, very effective manner.
Love it. Love it. So we start working together.
Yeah.
I'm first curious to hear, other than how annoying I was, what were some of the more the aha moments for you as we started our work together?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say you were annoying. I thought it was actually fun. Sometimes your kid would come in and try to hit you up for another video game on his iPad. But realistically, the aha moments, and I kind of alluded to this, right? And so it was figuring out what that rubric was of what is a product design question really going for, right? So having a framework to do that, but not over rotating on a framework that it sounds like I'm filling in an automaton answer, but really how I can apply my own experience set to
Mm.
be able to think through product design or estimation or product ops, DevOps kind of stuff, execution questions, and then how to be able to structure my thinking around that. That was some of my big aha moments. Is like, oh, that's the question they're asking.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like it's often one level hidden, uh
Yeah.
what they actually want to get out. And you were awesome at just like, okay, yeah, I got it. Now here's how I change my answer. And it just all clicked.
Well,
So so
thanks. Yeah.
so tell me then, what was the final result? Where did you end up? How awesome is the new role? How excited you are? Just always eager to hear what the final results were for you.
Yeah, so the nice thing is it was a good timing perspective because I kind of reached out to a couple of my networks and I touched base with Qualtrics and a few other ones actually. And so I was in the early stages, which is where I had done well previously. So this is like almost worked as a just in time. So we had started to take apart my career and sort of started to take apart all those kind of things. So as the ramp up of like, oh, this is interesting, I got to have these conversations. I was like applying it the next day to an interview. So it was good timing and it was matched of, all right, we're going to do a behavior interview as a screen, and then we're going to move you into the product management sort of design questions. I was like, great, talk about product design tomorrow and then be ready for that. So had a couple of leads already sort of in the fire of people I talked to, Qualtrics being one of them. And it was one of those things that they reached out. They're like, oh, you have good experience. They did the screening interview. Initially, they were hiring me for a different group, but they saw my background and the way I phrased it, because I have an interesting background of systems management and human resources and product management, which is a very odd fit. And it was like one of the EX team, which is the employee experience, goes, oh, hey, that guy, he's got some of the stuff we know about. And so it jumped from that CX or customer facing group to the EX group. And it was like I was ready just in time to start going through that loop, which in an overabundance of things, I think I went through 12 interviews with Qualtrics. With
Wow.
typically it would have been like a day, right? You go in, you talk to a whole bunch of people and you're done. But it was like 12 interviews over the course of a month and a half, right? This is the counterpoint to the COVID benefit. It's the downside, right? So it's a little longer and they're trying to get a hold of who you are as a person. Which totally makes sense, right? Because fit on both sides was a lot of what you're looking for. And the other thing is, as we got towards the end of it, you and I worked together on some of the other things of how to probe to find the right fit for me, right? So the flip side of it, which is always you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. So it was really how do I ask those questions to unearth the types of things that I want to know in my forward thinking career and what they're doing and where they're at as a product and an organization to flip over some of those rocks to make sure I didn't go, yes, I've got a shiny new role. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I totally agree that I think sometimes in the excitement of the new role, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome! I got it. I'm gonna obviously go for it." I'm like, hold on, like maybe not. Like maybe you should wait and go for the next one. And in your case, it was like hit all the things that you were looking for, um, and it worked really well. And you also, I remember you mentioning that, hey, like in terms of the seniority and other things you were looking for, it also stood out as something that was probably like at the high range of what you were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the, I would say, upshots is it was a level up from where I was originally targeting.
Hmm.
So I moved into a role where I actually have a slightly bigger span of control. I'm working on a product area which is growing quickly, but it's undefined of where it goes next. So I get to charter the course a little bit more. And so kind of like the joke I mentioned of the 12 interviews, some of them were my own fault because one, I showed up better than expected. And it was like, oh, we can actually have this is a person we can consider for a broader role. So
Hmm.
I got to talk to all the way up to the chief product officer, who probably wouldn't have been included in the loop previously, but it was
Hmm.
because I was probing on questions of, where's the strategy go and what are we doing with this? And how are we thinking about the ROI and our go-to-market strategy? All of these componentry that they're like, oh, this person could be a little more. We can expand out. And the second part is I was probing into the tech stack and where do we have and tech debt and as opposed to just sitting sort of being like on my heels and saying, here's how I respond to tech debt, actively asking the question of what's your tech debt? How are we doing it? What are we addressing with it? I'm like, oh, and then I ended up talking to, our VP of engineering to get his sort of mindset around how we produce that and how I would work well with the engineering leads and how he's thinking about building out that team because it's one that the team is growing as well. So inadvertently, I added several interviews, but it turned out that I ended up, leveling up, if you will, to kind of use a sort of, I'm a gamer myself, so using that kind of concept of, oh, I ended up with more than I was originally seeking because I was able to show up and present in a way that was, more than was expected.
Totally. And I want to underline that point for anyone watching this that you very often people think of interviewing as check the box, and you are in some sense checking the boxes, but sometimes you can level up and check, like people are looking at you for something, and suddenly they see this, like, okay, you're actually capable of doing something even more, and that depends how you tell your story, how
Mm-hmm.
well you interview, and that means higher everything, higher role, higher title, higher compensation, higher all these things happen when you get that right, and you did, so congratulations on
Thank you. Yeah, it's very exciting. The narrative part's been great. At times, they've described me as a unicorn, which I'm not sure how to take that. Makes me
that.
probably nervous as hell, but it's like now it's performing at that level. But I'm not super nervous. I'm more excited and really, pumped at how I come to it every day.
Love it, love it. And then last question, just for anyone who's watching and who's considering intentional product manager, any message you'll have for them on what they should consider as they make their decision?
Well, frankly, I would say interview Shobit just like you would expect somebody to interview you, but really use it as a sounding board to think through what is it you want to grow up and be when you grow up. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, nor do I ever want to figure that out because I want to still be an interesting person, but
Totally.
just have an idea of where you're going and
Yeah.
sort of bring that to the table every time. And you're not going to be perfect. That's okay.
Hmm.
Be comfortable with who you are because showing the flaws actually makes you a stronger candidate than trying to say, I'm this perfect thing in the box that they're just going to get and everything's going to be magical. You want to be as much transparent to them as you are to they are to you. So that's really something to think about. And then whatever you have done, it's more than you probably have thought
Mm.
because it's the incremental growth that you don't see because you're with yourself every day. And taking a step back is sometimes hard, and it's tricky for us, unless we're, I guess, a complete narcissist, to think in terms of what have we done, right? That's really beneficial. You're usually underselling yourself, and that's okay. Not to brag about yourself, but to say, here's what I've honestly done, and to share that with someone else so they can see it too. Because in an interview, no one knows you until you start to interact.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. That's really awesome advice, and just the the separation, like you're there all the time, so you can't notice the difference. And you know, you're like kind of like, for me, it's happened these annoying things where I see some family members for after a long time, and they say, "Oh, you've gained a lot of weight." I'm like, "Great, thank you." I'm like, "I never noticed that."
Just what I needed, I guess.
Yeah, but just like those things that's changing about you, you don't notice, and somebody else can, a coach can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And when you
awesome.
get that, that allows you to find where you really want to be. I mean,
Yeah.
I found an organization that I really enjoy being part of because I was honest with myself first, and then I could be honest with them, and vice versa. So we found something that fit. Because I had a couple other options towards the end where they were actually sort of in the final stage. So I got to pick, which is an exciting spot,
Yeah,
right? And because I had thought about some of those personal things, I knew, yep, Qualtrics, that's the right spot for me. They're
totally.
the fit that I want.
Yeah. Neil, thank you so much for doing this interview. I mean, everyone who is considering joining Intentional Particle loves these stories, and loves to hear from people who've been through it and the results that they got. So appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It was good. Appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thank you.